Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to today's Art Matters talk with art members of the Frederick County Art Association. My name is Corey Fry. I'm the exhibitions manager at the Delaplane Art Center. I want to, right off the bat, let you know that if you have any questions or comments about the show or for any of our panelists today, you can share those questions and comments in the chat. And there is also a Q&A button down at the bottom. You can select that and submit a question as well. And we'll have a time for a question and answer, a specific time a little later on, but we'll make sure that we get all those questions over to the panelists or whoever they're directed to. So also, I did want to let you know that about some of our programming, and let you know too that our exhibitions are open for in-person viewing. We are taking safety precautions, so you can find any of that posted on our doors or on our website, but the gallery spaces are open and we've got some great exhibitions open right now. There's three new exhibitions and one that's a carryover from January. All of them are fantastic. There are 2 shows on our first floor galleries and 2 on our second floor. So come in and check those out. We'll also be posting sort of overview, some overview images of some of the exhibitions, and those will be up on our Flickr page, and you can check those out by going to our website, delaplane.org. You can find the link to our Flickr page. You can also check out upcoming exhibitions, classes that we have coming up. We have some workshops and other programs and things coming up, so you can find all that information at delaplane.org, or if you come by, you can grab one of our magazines that has all that information in it as well. One other thing really quick is that we record this talk, and with some light editing, we'll post it up on our YouTube channel. So if you know of anyone that wasn't able to tune in and you think they would enjoy it, you can send them over to our YouTube channel, and that you can find the link for that through our website as well. There's lots of great talks from like the last 2 years or so on there. Some workshops, some art technique videos and different things, so it's worth checking out. There's quite a bit on there. If you do decide to come by to the physical space and see some of the exhibitions, our hours are Monday through Saturday 9 to 5 and Sunday from 11 to 5. Today from 3 to 5 we have the opening of our new exhibitions, and a lot of the artists will be present during that. So if you want to come by and meet some of the artists, you can do that as well. So without further ado, we're going to dive into talking with the members of FCAA, Frederick County Arts Association. But I want to read a quick blurb about FCAA to you really quick, just to give you an idea, if you're not familiar with them, about some of the things that they do. The Frederick County Arts Association is a not-for-profit organization committed to encouraging artistic growth within its membership, as well as promoting community interests and participation in the visual arts. Founded and established in 1979 by Rina Larkin and Joyce Kuhn, the Frederick County Arts Association led a grassroots campaign to bring a first-class visual arts center to Frederick. As an organization, they support the Delaplane, which opened in 1986, and support and help the early members of FCAA. FCAA is one of the largest groups of active artists in Frederick, Maryland. With the broad membership base, the FCAA is able to address a variety of concerns and present a united viewpoint for the support of the visual arts in the community. FCAA is responsible for a donation of $1,000 scholarship for the Betty Awards Young Artists every year, and that show's coming up in March. And membership is made up of people from a variety of art interests, from hobby artists to professionals to fine crafters, authors, art teachers, students, and others who enjoy exhibiting, viewing, collecting, supporting, and earning learning more about the visual arts. So um, FCAA we have a show with them every year, and it's always a great show full of a variety of disciplines and a lot of great work. The show is fantastic, so I encourage anyone watching to come check it out. But we have we have 5 of the artists that are exhibiting in the show, and we'll be talking to 4 of them specifically, and then we'll be talking to Rina Larkin, who's founded and established FCAA, and she'll be talking to us in a little bit. But first, we're going to be talking to artist Craig Cavan. I'm going to read you his bio here, and then we can show you some of Craig's work as well, the work that's in the show. So Craig Cavan began studying art in high school in Ferguson, Missouri, studied fine art at Webster College in Webster Groves, Missouri, moved to California, then Maui and Oahu, where he studied horticulture and plant pathology at Maui Community College and the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Craig moved to Frederick and worked at USDA Agricultural Research Service at Appalachia Fruit Research Station in Kearneysville, West Virginia, and Foreign Disease Weed Science Research Station at Fort Detrick for 30 years as a technician and a support scientist. Craig received an MS degree in environmental biology from Hood College in Frederick. He's retired, married for 43 years, enjoys making visual art, fly fishing, chess, playing music, and gardening. Craig, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and sharing your work with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Craig has some great paintings in the show. Craig, are you ready for me to go ahead and pull up your work so you can talk a bit about your work? Okay.
You can tell that I've worked with nature and natural systems for many years. This painting was taken from a photograph of some of the leaves in the Carroll Creek area. Not so much the flowers, but I was really interested in the variety of the leaves themselves. The painting is called Anti-Gravity, and I really was tuning in on the clouds, the leaves, and the sky behind it, and there was a sort of a spatial disparity there. As it goes up into the upper right-hand corner, there's a feeling of moving up, and so that was kind of what I was going for there. Just I just really enjoyed the coloration of the leaves from the lotus flower. Most of my work has a basis in nature, coming from Missouri and into the Hawaiian Islands for a number of years, and studying plants and plant processes. That's just something that's always stayed with me. In Hawaii, I acquired a deep appreciation for orchids and the variety in orchids. There's something about the non-symmetrical nature of color expression in orchid leaves that I find attractive. This was from another photograph of some orchids, and it has a somewhat surrealistic appearance. Not spooky so much, but just an otherworldly appearance of it that I really enjoyed, and I also like the variety in the blossoms themselves. So that was kind of where this one was from. This one's called Low Tide in the Bayou. I spend a lot of time every year fishing down in North Carolina, and I really like being back in the marsh. There's just a lot of really interesting life that's going on in the marshes of the Carolinas. And this painting is about when you get the high tide, the water comes up, and as it recedes, it leaves a sort of a mud line or a dirt line on the reeds that are there. I really enjoy fishing, I enjoy cooking, and I enjoy being back in the marshes. This is a very peaceful place for me to spend with my buddies every year. So I wanted to bring a little bit of that into this painting. that's really about where I'm at and what I do. And most of what I do is from a direct inspiration of my deep appreciation of the natural world.
That's great, Craig. And all these are oil on canvas, right?
The last one is acrylic on canvas.
Oh, is it? Okay. Sorry, I have
Yeah.
that one tagged wrong there.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. The first two are, go ahead.
Do you are you engaged in any other artistic disciplines, or are you primarily a painter?
Primarily painting. I'm doing a lot of work with frottage and rubbings of natural occurrences. Um, Damage of bark beetles on trees and doing some rubbings from those and transferring them to canvas. Primarily, it's two-dimensional visual work at this point.
I love your sensibility as far, especially sort of the viewpoint of the paintings they do have this breakdown where you know that you're looking at nature, but it's almost abstracted in some ways. That's really interesting, and almost geometric in some ways.
When I was an art student, there was something from one of my textbooks that really appealed to me, and that was that art was either a work of determined relations or internal necessity. And you have expressionism or Mondrian or Pollock on the one kind of extremes. And I've always tried to find a balance between those two sensibilities in my work.
Yeah, they're great pieces. Can you, I don't remember off the top of my head, maybe you do the sizes of each of them?
The first one, I believe, is 42 by 44.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, I think that's 48 by 48.
Okay.
And the third one, I believe, is 50. It's a bit larger. I think it's 58 by 36, maybe 52 by 36.
Yeah.
They're larger pieces.
I love the scale of them. They beg for you to sort of be immersed in the imagery, and so they're great paintings.
Yeah, thanks, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you working on now? Is there anything that you're working on? Are you working on similar paintings, or you have some other things going on?
I have right now I have some pieces that I'm working on that are frottage oriented. They're rubbings of bark beetle damage on locust trees.
Oh, okay.
It almost looks like a sort of natural hieroglyphics in a way.
Interesting.
And I rub on those with rice paper with oil crayon, and then transfer that to canvas, and then I detail all the little galleries that the beetles make. And again, my work with plant diseases and entomology sort of brought me to the point of trying to interpret some of those natural phenomena.
I love that idea. When you say that you're transferring the rubbings to canvas, are you transferring them like a direct transfer, or are you drawing them from the rubbings?
Well, the rubbings, I put rice paper on the tree, and then I do a rubbing with an oil crayon.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rice paper is transferred with a like a gel to the surface of the canvas.
I see. Okay. So it's a direct transfer from one to the other. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then at that point, I detail all the little galleries that are made by the insects with acrylic. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm working on at this point.
Fantastic. Great.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Corey.
Yeah, thank you so much. If anyone has any questions for Craig, you can put those in the chat or in the Q&A box, and we'll have a time for a question and answer here at the end. So let us know if you have anything of interest with Craig's work, and I would encourage you to, of course, come out and see the work in person. Thank you, Craig, so much.
You betcha.
All right, next up we have Ron Roos. Ron Roos grew up in New York City and attended Hunter College and the School of Visual Arts. He moved to Frederick in 1980 from New York to work for the National Park Service Exhibit Designs Office in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Ron is also a founding member of the Delaplane and served as a director of properties in the 1990s. His design committee led the design and development of the Mountain City Mill building and Gardner Hall's addition. Ron has been a member of the Frederick County Arts Association since 1984 and is a longtime artist in a variety of mediums. He began working in clay about 10 years ago, and Ron has 2 ceramic pieces in the FCAA members show. Ron, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great work in the show. I love seeing some 3-dimensional work. And you had some great pieces in the show last year as well. Ron's first piece is called Ice Bucket. Let me get that pulled up here. Can you tell us a little bit about Ice Bucket? And it's
sure.
wood-fired ceramic, right?
Yes, it is. And this piece is really rather fresh. I completed it just a couple of months ago. It's a little bit of an homage to a sculptor, ceramicist by the name of Peter Volkos that I've studied as a student. And it's having my student mind. I'm open now to do the things like emulate and also accept inspiration from my ceramic heroes. So this piece is stoneware clay with a variety of inclusions. And before wood firing it, I also bathed it in a solution of titanium oxide stain, also known as rutile stain. Rutile is a mineral primarily composed of titanium dioxide. And that is what gives this piece the kind of golden hue that it has overall. Now, as I mentioned, this was a piece inspired by my ceramic hero, Peter Volkos. Maybe you could have slides 2 and then 3, perhaps, Corey.
Yes, let's see here. There we go.
So Peter Volkos in the 50s made quite a mark on the ceramic world by coming forth with abstract pieces that, while they hinted at their heritage of functionality, really are abstract in a very complete sense. He works from large pieces of clay, and his method is mostly subtractive. Now, not totally, but mostly as exhibited in these ideas, in these pieces here. Now, so I kind of moved ahead thinking about his approach and the opportunity I had to participate in wood firing. So the first piece along these lines that I did, kind of along the same line as his piece, really gnarly clay with a lot of inclusions, a lot of sand, pebbles, ground up granite. But again, I think this is rather recognizable as a very much an inline kind of copy, while it is an homage. Now with his pieces, we see the commonality. There are some 1950s ice buckets with Peter's, and then we can probably move back to my piece. So having been a child of the 50s, I was very, very aware of those ice buckets around the house. They were the very mid-century now, looking back, the style of the simple drum, maybe sometimes with leatherette or chrome trim around them. So when it came time for me to do my own ice bucket, I took a lot of ideas about clay, such as working inclusions, ground granite, pebbles, in this case, a couple of Cape May diamonds, which are pebbles, quartzite pebbles gathered off the beach near Cape May, New Jersey. And just put the whole mosh together as much as I could with the spirit of working with soft and rough clay. And this is what I came up with. And you know, there's a lot of things that we see in hindsight, and I think the images I selected for this hint toward exactly what those images are. But it's very interesting how many of these things don't really register completely until after the fact. So let me see. So I think that's probably all I have to say about ice bucket.
Okay. Yeah.
Corey.
Well, I mean, the thing that I really love about this is how you've taken something you've taken something so utilitarian and stripped it. Like this obviously it exaggerates how unable it would be to preserve ice. Do you know what I mean? Like an ice bucket's job is to seal something off. So you've stripped it of its utility completely. Not as if it would work if it would seal, but it's just visually that stripping away of utility to keep it as a striking visual piece is a really interesting idea to me.
Well, you're absolutely right. In full practical functionality, that's a real hindrance there. But on the other hand, the one thing I noticed is, and I didn't really, again, think about this too much until after the fact, although I did think about it. I decided to put lids on my ice buckets, which Volkos, of course, had no need to, because now he's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I think he was the first American ceramicist to be in the Metropolitan. So yeah, I've kind of took it and put my own thing to it, because I've known from the time I started ceramics, I got to admit that I made a lot of practical pieces, things like mugs that have tenuous handles, but really are designed that way for the sake of design, for the sake of form over function many times. But that's really a bit of a comment on the state of design, as well as just an emotional reaction to the visual that I want to see, along with the utilitarian aspect of a piece.
Sure. No, it's a great piece.
Thank you.
Your other piece in the show is, let me pull it up here, is called Dorothy and Her Tin Friend. Can you tell us a bit about this piece, or these two pieces? Do you consider them one piece?
They travel as one piece now. Yes, so I do, although they both have their own humble beginnings. These pieces go, the beginnings of this piece goes back a couple of years now, when I was deep and heavy into making a series of geometric teapots. The teapots were inspired by some, again, mid-century design and geometrics. So obviously you can see the drum motif, and that drum teapot there, which is now Dorothy, has a bit of its inspiration in Fiesta ware. If you're familiar with Fiesta ware pitchers, I'm very familiar with them because I had a friend who had nearly 100 of them on kitchen shelves at one time. But they have that circular form to them, but they have much more to them in terms of completing their design. I don't have a snapshot of that to show that aspect. So, and the silver teapot, Her Tin Friend, he was the first one that I made in my conical series. Now I have I'm going to make one more point about these two pieces. Both of them had slight stress stack fractures in the bisque firing stage, and that was because I was learning about building this type of piece out of semi-firm slabs of clay and getting them to be structurally intact. But I kept them around while I went on with the rest of the series. Now, if you're familiar with my other work in teapots as well as plates and platters, I fully glaze those pieces, and I most often apply decals of my photography of trees to them. So I have a relative of Dorothy here that really expresses the typical nature of my work. You see this all right on camera, Corey?
Let me, I think I probably have, let me see.
I'm not seeing myself.
There you go. I had to stop screen sharing to pull it
Here's
up.
one that's fully glazed and has one of my trees of Frederick images on it. This is a conical piece, which is quite different. I have different kind of handle treatment. And it's a little bit much more hard edge, whereas the Tin Man has a little bit softer edge and obviously a more like what's termed as an elegant style handle. So we can go back to that image if we're not. So so they hung around the studio a while, and I repaired them. And then one day I just saw Dorothy in bright red. I saw, you know, a bright red Fiesta wear picture, but I wanted to bring something else to it. So therein comes the spray paint and the glitter, and the obvious thing to do to the Tin Man was to go with the silver. So, you know, a little bit of this is upcycling, recycling, rethinking. But I'm really, I don't see how these pieces could have ended up any other way at this point.
Yeah. Do you have a particular fondness for Wizard of Oz, or was it just that it struck you that way and it had to exist in that form?
Well, it's just one of those embedded subconscious kind of
Sure.
things that float around there, along with the ice buckets that have been sleeping for 50 years or so, until all of a sudden the ice bucket comes along to me in my recent pottery studies by way of Peter Volkos. But yeah, in fact, in my work as an exhibit designer with the National Park Service on a visit to the American Museum of American History, I at one time was in the conservation labs there, and they had Dorothy's ruby slippers in lab for rehab at the time. It seems that, well, Dorothy's slippers are not spray paint, glitter paint, but they are made up of hundreds, maybe thousands of small acetate plastic ruby colored little lenses. And those were in real bad shape. They just naturally deteriorated with age. They dried out and cracked and such. So the labs were in the process of making reproduction pieces, and it's kind of neat to see that happen. So yeah, I'm highly aware of Dorothy and her ruby slippers.
Yeah, that's great. Did you, was it hard for you at all finding the right shade of red? It seems to be spot on.
Well, yeah, I searched every aisle at Michael's. I got to admit.
I bet.
I think I even went to AC Moore at the time. I think they're around. Yeah, they're around then, to find just the right shade.
Yeah, that's great.
It's just the right shade, and I had the silver radiator paint on hand already.
I gotcha. Yeah, these two pieces, or this piece, is so different from Ice Bucket, with its organic shape and just the geometry of these pieces.
Well, a lot of people commented on the sculptural quality of them.
Sure.
But of course, I wanted to go a different direction. I wanted to go with my earth tones and my trees of Frederick trees for most of the series. But I'm glad I had a chance to work with this, which is it presents it much more in a sculptural way. You know, in fact, these, while they're decorative, they are still clean inside. Not that I would recommend making tea in them, but they still have a quasi-functional capacity to them, even though they've been embellished with paint.
Oh, nice. I didn't mean to. There we go. Yeah, thank you so much, Ron. I think these are great pieces. I love having them in the show. I like these two existing together. And you've got some pieces in our gift gallery as well, don't you, at the Delaplane?
Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah.
And those pieces reflect more of my current work. I've been lately making a lot of drinking cups. Nice. And one of the differences between clay and other media is that is the tactile and the durability of clay over time. And I've got to admit, I've been somewhat amiss at taking advantage of clay and its textural opportunities for some time. So this is kind of my attempt to really take that to a step. And these are cups that I've embellished with add-on discs or semi-discs that are arranged as characters in the Braille alphabet. Now, this particular cup and a number of cups I have in the gift shop are, I call them my love cups, because we've got the L, O, V, and E in Braille as you go around the cup. So it's a little bit of a kind of hidden message here. I don't tell a whole lot of people about that until I had a chance to experience them and say, what are the dots about, if they go that far.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy to not only be able to make these, which I think they're just beautiful coming out of the wood fire with the variety of toasty hues and ash deposits that we get. But it's just the thing the world needs, and not the cup, it's the love.
Thanks so much for taking time to talk through your pieces with us, and for being a part of the show. I love seeing your work there. So
great. Thank you.
Well, everyone, next up we have Chris Madden. Chris Madden is the Vice President of Frederick County Arts Association and a board member of TAG, the artist gallery here in Frederick, Maryland. Chris is the owner of Rushing River Art Studios in Augusta, West Virginia. And his website also, which we can probably put in the chat for anyone interested, is christopher-madden.com. Chris was also a part of our veterans exhibition, the previous exhibition that we just had, and has 3 paintings in the show for FCAA. Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your work.
Me too. It's hard to say that you understand your own work when I think it's kind of the journey and not the destination that we're still all on as artists. But to kind of understand maybe my motivations for the kind of imagery that I like to deal with. If you go in the Wayback Machine to when I was just a wee lad, growing up in Appalachia, it was a very isolated experience, but I did have 2 influences that appealed to me. Well, 3 actually. One was Looney Tunes, cartoons, every Saturday morning. And one was Mad Magazine. And then the third was reading. And reading, I think, prompted and grew in me that kind of spark of imagination that maybe I wouldn't have had otherwise. But fast forwarding to my career, which I didn't put in the bio, I kind of intentionally didn't, but I thought, well, why not talk about it a little bit? Because it also goes into explaining kind of a kid out at recess mentality. And that is that, you know, for 35 years, I was a master engraver at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, engraving the images that appear on our currency. And if anyone takes a look at the banknote, they can see how fastidious and exacting that instrument is. So I did that for 35 years because it was a pretty good gig for an artist. But at the same time, I was never really cut out to do tedious, tiny, exacting work. You know, artists, you know, sometimes are very fastidious that way, and then sometimes they're not. And, you know, I was certainly more the, you know, Craig had referenced Pollock and Mondrian. You know, I was way more towards the Pollock side than the Mondrian side. Just the rigidity of it would just make my teeth hurt. So frankly, another aspect of working for the federal government for 35 years was, as a creative person, knowing that this was a good gig and raising a family, I had respect, tremendous respect for the job, and was proud of what I did. But as I said, it never really fit me. And one of the things as a creative person was I would have all these concepts for creativity in my head, but things like I work in now, some of the satire I work in now, there was every possibility that it could get me in trouble. So it was quite frustrating to have an idea and say, well, yeah, but you better not express that idea because there could be consequences. And I needed that gig for raising my family. So basically, fast forward again to when I retired about 3 years ago, right before COVID hit, I was free. I could now express myself without fear of retribution. I had my pension, an artist with the pension, what a concept. So, even then, initially I thought to myself, I just want to spend the rest of my life just learning to be a painter. I want to just concentrate on the way to paint, how I want to paint, to my expectations. To that end, I was selected to do studying at the National Gallery, which traditionally was a very, again, traditional way for painters to learn how to paint. And I was enjoying that immensely until the pandemic messed that up too. So missed that opportunity, but it was wonderful just to study. I mean, to go in with a loaded paintbrush in front of a Rembrandt self-portrait and the guards aren't shooting you in the head. That kind of, wow, I'm getting away with this. But just to look at something, that close and say, look at that piece of color there. Look at that value. Look at that brush stroke. How did he do that? And learn from it. It was like watching the most interesting detective movie. People would come up and say, well, why are you, what are you going to do with this painting when you're done with it? It was really kind of a weird question because it wasn't about the painting. It was about the experience of learning from someone that was such a giant in painting. And to that end, I have kind of a manifesto of my own where I believe great paintings don't have to be pretty subject matter. And to that, it's a benefit to be in the library here because I just happened to turn around and a couple of examples of those guys were right there. One is Damier's work and another one would be Francisco Goya's work. Goya did a lot of, graphic work and paintings as well that weren't pretty pieces. And they basically were tempting fate with the king, the church. And these are very dangerous things to do, but he felt compelled to react to the world around him. And I kind of have that ethic in my head that I can't help it but comment. And so if you fuel that with Mad Magazine or Looney Tunes, there's a certain way of imagery that I enjoy. I enjoy satire. I think satire and humor can be very powerful tools to put across an interesting narrative. I do like narrative in my work. It's just interesting to me. I have a belief structure where I think that all of the arts, and that includes philosophy, poetry, literature, current events, all of these things are intertwined. They all inform each other. And when I have a concept in my head, in addition to something that sparked it, let's say it's something in the world happening today, like you can see here with this As the World Burns. My mother used to watch her stories, the soap operas, and that was one of them, As the World Turns, that she would watch. And I couldn't resist a bad pun. So that suggested itself, but just the concept of what was going on in the world, all the events, the politicization of things, and how, you think to yourself, well, what if the devil were in his living room watching his television and he's very happy with what's going on. He's eating popcorn, that kind of, scenario. So there's the concept, and then how to flesh that out. I like to work with live models. So this gentleman has, he's become my muse. He will basically take on any persona I ask him to do. And he's an older man. And frankly, I enjoy working with older people just because there's a certain history that's written on their bodies at that point. There's a character. And I very much enjoy characters. Characters are interesting to me, much like a book would be interesting to me, or a good poet would be interesting to me. So these things kind of combine for me when I'm conceptualizing what I want to say and how I want to say it. And I want to paint things beautifully, but I don't want them to be beautiful as a necessity. I mean, to give you an example, if you were to go into the Louvre and you go and find Géricault's Raft of the Medusa painting, massive painting, huge painting, depicting, a horrible scene of cannibalism and being stranded out in the ocean. But I'll tell you, if you walk past some Dutch still lifes and observe people looking at them, they're going by them pretty much going, oh, that's nice. Those are nice. I like that. But then you see people interacting with the Géricault painting, horrifying as it is, and there's a real interaction going on. There's a dialogue between the viewer and what the artist was expressing. And to me, that's just fascinating. I like that kind of stuff. I really am not for myself, and this is not a rap against anybody else's art at all. Wonderful. The creative act, in my opinion, is whether you're driving a nail, you're fishing as Craig does, you're making pottery like Ron, any creative act that engages that sense of yourself, that creative act. I mean, when I paint in its essence, I mean, I don't paint for money. I never think about, gee, I wish this would sell. I hope it sells. I don't want to be in that position. I want to create and express freely. And, you know, it's not the point to make art for me for that reason. And as I said, it's the creative act can be anything that you do that engages. And why I paint primarily is that when I do paint, you know, time stands still. It could be 5 hours later and I've stood the whole time. And I have a horrible back now. And I don't feel a thing. I'm fine. But when I put that paintbrush down, you know, it's reality time again. You know, I've gone away. The word atonement, we break that down into at one-ment. I'm at one when I'm painting. That creative act absorbs me. And that's my reward. That's why I want to do it. It's the best drug I've ever encountered. So anyway, with that being said, any questions about this? Oh, one thing I'll say about this painting too is that some of the lessons with the National Gallery studying, you know, there's some Rembrandt technique here that I borrowed, mixed in with the Ashcan school. Just that little cad orange of the cigarette here that just glows. And it glows based upon my experience studying that type of thing that the Ashcan artists used to do. And then now the reddish and the green in the background, those were glazed in. And that's more of a Rembrandt thing, a more traditional art thing. He was kind of a hybrid in that he would do direct painting and also glazing within grisaille underneath it. So I wanted to apply that type of thing to manipulate space and chroma and value in this painting. So there is science involved here, but I want it to be a very expressive thing, not an exact thing. And as I say, it came from my live model here, who did wear the horns for me. I added the red and I invented the rest of it out of my own head. So yeah, and I just, you know, there's a character there that I wanted to get at.
Yeah, it's a great piece, Chris. That cat orange, did you say it's cat orange in the cigarette?
Yes.
Yeah, that stuck out to me. The little reflection right underneath of it is totally I love what you said about being like you wanted to spend the rest of your life learning how to be a painter. Is that how you said it?
Yes. But then you know what? I gave into temptation though. I mean, I'm not doing color studies in my studio. I'm having to respond to things, and so I'm probably being a bad boy here doing this kind of stuff. But it's fun too. Yeah. And painting should be fun. Creativity should be fun. One of the classes I took that I think had the most value in art school a century ago was a philosophy of art class, which posed the basic question: why make art? And why make it? Is it for you? Is it for a viewer? Is it for money? You know, so just pondering why am I making art is a very interesting and ongoing question. Yeah, it's a great piece. Thank you. Well, let me let's go to the next one here. Dickens. Yeah, tell us about this piece. This again started with a live model. We've got a cadre of live models in the area, and they're very, very good. They're excellent, actually. And this is a gentleman named Harry. And Harry is a stage actor, so he brings that presence with him into his modeling. And I really appreciate that. I mean, Harry showed up, I kid you not, in this outfit with Kermit as Bob Cratchit and the little desk. So this was painted from observation initially. And, you know, I regularly hold, except for now I'm pausing it because of the pandemic, the latest variant, a Sunday figure study class at the Griffin Arts Center here in Frederick, Maryland. From 2 to 5, everyone's welcome, but not right now. But anyway, he posed in that outfit, and the concept was just fun. I mean, this was a painting that I really wasn't like having a preconceived narrative notion about. It was just something where I was having such a good time with it, and he was so great to bring in all this, you know, accoutrement to work with, that I simply just set it within the Dickens, you know, counting house that Scrooge would have had in my mind. I invented all this stuff behind it. But it was just a fun painting, you know, and again, I guess it also references my, when I said that literature is something that can be and has been a pool for artists, for many, many, many years.
Yeah, that's great. You've taught at the Delaplane, you taught a caricature class before, is that right?
Yep.
I'm totally getting a sense of caricature as far as the size of the head, Scrooge's head, even
Yep.
the size of the hat on top of his head. The exaggeration there is super interesting, and it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, there is actually a little bit of engraving history in the sense of the head size, and that is that in engravings, portraiture, you do make the head just a little bit larger because it works better. I don't know why, it just works better. And for caricature, for sure. I mean, you could also reference Damier with this kind of thing. He did this wonderful set of attorney heads that are little sculptures. And they used to have a set of them in Washington. I forget which museum it was at. It was at the Hirshhorn. But they're also at the L'Orangerie in Paris. And they're just wonderful little sculptural caricatures of these guys. And they're saying something about them. I mean, a good portrait doesn't capture the outside of a person. You're trying to capture the inside, something about them. And sometimes exaggeration can really get you there.
Yeah.
And I like to paint in a muscular fashion, if you will. I like thick impasto paint. I like, bravura strokes. I mean, that kind of action painting is just appeals to me. I couldn't do, again, based on my history as an engraver, I couldn't sit down and just do some really tight, tiny little thing. Somebody came up once and said, well, you don't really paint like an engraver. I said, well, thank God for that. It just, again, all the respect in the world for that craft. It's very demanding on purpose because otherwise people will be counterfeiting money. But it's really difficult. And as I said, just psychologically wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate the brush's presence in your work for sure. Right, let's see here. And this is game night, right?
Yeah, I called it game night because it was a more accessible title. I originally wanted to call it Idiotenspiele, which is many years ago I lived in Germany and had some friends over for Thanksgiving. And after the meal, they wanted to play a game. So the only game I had was this trouble game with the Pop-O-Matic thing. And they played it, but then they said, this is an Idiotenspiele, which is an idiot game in German. And I thought, wow, I'm going to remember Idiotenspiele for the rest of my life. And I thought originally this would be the better name for the work, but it didn't give you access. And I do think that, and the other artists probably agree with me, that a title to a piece can have a lot of insight into the artist's mind, what they were trying to hint at anyway. You don't have to lead someone by the nose, but it is clever anyway to say something that will bring someone into the work and have them. I like it when they make their own conclusions, but you do want to give an intent, I think. I want to. So this is a large work, and compositionally, it's based on a work by Caravaggio, who was another character in art history and liked to sword fight. And it's called The Supper at Emmaus, was the compositional underpinning for this painting. So, but now as a painter wanting to learn how to paint better, this was a technique for me, an experimentation in, I had each of these models, well, except for Jesus, set for me. And then I used the studies from those experiences, those 3-hour paintings, those alla prima paintings, to then go to the studio and then put those paintings or those characters from the paintings into this composition, which was based on Caravaggio painting. So the challenge there was, you have to get the lighting consistent. And it was an interesting way because that's a classical way that paintings did get developed in time as well. So I'm learning from each of the works that I do. I want to learn from it. It's not just do it and it's just a picture. It's the experience of it. And there's a great bit of glazing in this work, direct painting. And it's a fun work. And, again, I reference satire as something that I think is important. And I like it. And it's somewhat of an activist thing in my spirit that I want to rattle some cages. I appreciate provocation and condemnation as much as I appreciate praise when it comes to art. I want to have a dialogue. I don't want it to just be, oh, that's nice. That just, for me, it doesn't work for me. I want to do more than that.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
in this painting, conceptually, if there is a heaven, and this will probably be shown on my my PowerPoint before they pull the trapdoor open. You got Jesus, you got the Tooth Fairy, and Santa Claus, and the Easter Bunny, and they're playing this game Trouble, which is an Idiotenspiel, as I said, and they've got fast food around them. And the thing is that to me, it was talking about the folklore that we invent in culture and how those things are silly like a game, but yet we give it such importance.
Yeah, there's some great moments. That shadow from the Easter Bunny on the back wall is fantastic.
Yeah.
That color
Yeah.
Against the green.
Yeah, that's part of the fun of the science of painting for me was, thinking about things I've seen in paintings in the National Gallery, for instance, or just around the world in museums, and kind of figuring out. I think as you get more sophisticated into work, you start asking those questions, like about chroma, about value, and manipulating things, and you get better at it the more you dive into a painting with those things in mind. I think the worst way to approach a painting is to think about, I'm painting a person, or I'm painting a hamburger, a game. You see it in shapes, you see it in color, you see it in value, and it becomes the same. And it's way more believable than if you go at it the other way.
No, Chris, I love your approach to, like you said, learning the rest of your life to be a painter. But I love this idea kind of away from don't get me wrong, there were masters in art history and all, but curiosity probably drove painters and artists more than the desire to be a master. Do you know what I mean? And I love your attitude coming at it from that direction, and your desire just to have fun with it.
Right.
Is a great approach. And of course, being an art center, we're all about folks learning more and being constant learners the rest of their lives. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Great work. Thank you so much for taking the time to share it with us.
You're welcome.
All righty, folks. Well, last but not least, I wanted Rina Larkin to come up. Rina is one of the founders of FCAA, and I wanted her to tell us a little bit about, oh, wait, I forgot something too. Rina also has an artwork in the show. I wish that I had a picture of it. I would have put it up here, but she's got a great piece of a cat in the show that's worth checking out. So Rina, I wanted you to just take a minute and tell folks any specifics you wanted to about FCAA. How can they become members if they're interested, and really anything else you wanted to say?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I definitely want to wish everyone a happy new year for sure. I definitely love all the information about all the things that the other members have shared and the other artists have shared today, because it gives everyone a true overview of what the Frederick County Art Association actually is. And that is the fact that it is for all types of art, appreciators, professional artists, amateurs, and that's what the other founder and myself, Joyce Kewen, were hoping for in 1979. We were part of the Frederick Academy of Arts, which was a school of arts in Frederick over in Chabro at the time. When Joyce and I got together to start the association, we felt that there wasn't anything locally for the artists to be able to show their work and learn more about the arts in Frederick. So we decided that we needed a group in order to do that. And during that time, there were several artists in Frederick that joined the group, including the Richardson brothers and other like Mary Lou Toussaint and other people that were locally noted in in the county at that time. And we got together on a monthly basis and we met. And for Debbie Richardson, who is married to Harry Richardson now, has been our historian, and she's been with the group almost from the very beginning. We're now in our 42nd year. And so it's amazing. We just recently had a picnic, and during that time, a lot of the original members participated in that picnic, and it was wonderful. And there is a picture on our website, which is www.fca.art. ART is the website for anyone that's interested in going to our website to see what we're all about. We're also on Facebook as well. But the organization, the beauty of the organization is the fact that not only do you get a chance to meet and understand the differences of the different artists, and as a matter of fact, Chris Madden, who you just heard from, is our program chair. And he has, every month, he has speakers come in, other artists come in to speak. We have different types of groups where people can participate in learning and having other presentations where people can practice. And we've had people come in and actually do hands-on sketches, like what Chris was saying with his studio. So we have the opportunity to have a lot of variation with our organization. And the beauty of the group is the fact that the show that is here currently at the Delaplane is our annual membership show that is free to all of our members, and the fact that it is a non-juried show and any one of our members can participate. So the beauty of that is that even if you're an amateur artist, you get to have a piece of artwork in the Delaplane for free for the entire month of January. And I can't really think of any other organization that offers that type of opportunity for an up-and-coming or professional artist, because a lot of times it's extremely expensive to be part of a show where there's a lot of costs involved, or a jury where they get selected for a show. So that's the beauty of being part of our organization. It's a wonderful group of people that really love the arts. The board of directors that I have currently are phenomenal. They keep me going. They definitely have this group doing everything in its power to stay active, stay alive. Even during this pandemic, we've kept going. We were doing things virtually. At one point, we even had one of our meetings out on the deck here at the Delaplane, so that it was outside for members.
Yeah, that's great, Rina. Thank you so much. I love what FCAA is doing, and I love too that we get to partner in this way. You know, Chris is a part of the Tag Art Gallery, and Craig has his studio over at the Griffin, and Rana, I think you're over at FCC, aren't you also?
Yeah, I'm
in the art department.
I'm not faculty, but I'm a student monitor.
Yeah, well, I just love that all of us sort of have our hands in different places, and it does provide an opportunity for a real sense of community. So being able to do this with FCAA every year is fantastic. Well, I appreciate you all so much for taking the time, not just sharing your work, but taking the time to talk with us. And it was great hearing from each of you. It's all great work in the show. I want to encourage anyone watching again to point people in the direction of our YouTube channel. You can come out and see the shows, check out the classes that we have coming up. We're working towards our spring semester of classes, and we've got some great program offerings here in the next couple of months. So come by, grab one of our magazines, check out our website, delaplane.org. And thank you all so much again for your time. Really appreciate you all doing this today.
Cheers.
Right.
All right. We'll see you later. Have a good day.
See you.
Come by and see us.